guided by a guidebook. I'll go places, I'll meet people, try and speak the language, I use my travel Spanish, whatever. But it gets me places, but I'm always fascinated by what makes people tick and what keeps them going. And one of the things that I learned by traveling the world is literally, first of all, we're all the same. We're all trying to get through life the best we can. And we've all got tough times that we have to overcome and adversity that we've got to bounce back from in life. And so being involved in the sports business, I realized that applies to sports as well, and that we really don't talk about that. What we do in sports is you play a game or you have a championship or a series, and then we hear about the winners afterwards. Maybe the loser immediately following, we spend 30 seconds talking with the losing coach or manager and say, oh, thanks, I know how hard this was. And then they disappear. And then history follows the people that win. They get the network TV jobs. They get the commercials. They get to go to Disneyland. But I go, well, what happened to all these people that were on the cusp of being on the winning side, albeit, for a play or for a last-second shot, for a foul, for a bad hit in golf. But, they were that close to being recorded in history as one of the all-time greats or one of the all-time winners. And they just recede into the woodwork, and we don't talk about them. So how are their lives affected by not being known, or worse, by being known only because they lost a major event? We all have a bad day at the office, yet 10 years later, nobody talks about it. Whereas if you're an athlete, people talk about your losses 10, 20, 30 years later, wherever you go and wherever you get introduced. And so I really wanted to study how that impacted people's lives personally. And then it does recount what happened in these games and in these series and how they got to these points and some literally play-by-play and pitch-by-pitch, shot selection by shot selection, what happened. But what I was really interested in is how it affected them moving forward, what we could learn from them about trying to deal with tough times in life, trying to bounce back from adversity, the ones that were successful in doing so, why were they successful, the ones that weren't successful, what were the challenges that they didn't address that we could all learn from and say, okay, I won't handle it that way so that I can try and move forward a lot faster. And so it was just a curiosity about what happened to these people mentally and emotionally, more so than for their sporting careers.
What did you find as a commonality, if you found one, in the great losing moments?
I think that about overcoming it, that the biggest thing was the people, I think two things. One, the people that dealt with whatever the reason was that they lost. And Pete Carroll was really instrumental in this, in talking about the Super Bowl loss 2 years ago to the Patriots, where they threw the ball down the goal line and it was picked off by Malcolm Butler rather than running it, and how he got his team together as soon as they got back to Seattle, and rather than everybody dispersing right away, had a team meeting and went over the final series play by play and what the coaches were thinking and why they made the decisions, because he said he knew that his team was young. He knew that when they disappeared, they'd hear stories from other people, and he wanted them to understand why they lost and what happened so that they could move forward with it and not have it be a negative situation for them for the rest of their lives, because we forget these are 23, 24, 25-year-old men, but also because his team was young and good, and he knew that if they were going to bounce back the next season and the seasons after, they would have to find a way to move past this as a unit. So he felt that he had to address it right away. And if you look at the book, the people that addressed the situation right away, that dealt with it immediately, Jean Van de Velde, Dan Jansen, Al Downing. I mean, these guys, they moved forward. The ones that didn't, the ones that buried it, Calvin Schiraldi's the classic story that I've talked about a lot, that 30 years later, after losing games 6 and 7 of the 1986 World Series for the Red Sox, that everybody blames Bill Buckner for, it wasn't Buckner, it was Schiraldi blowing a 1-run lead in the 8th, a 2-run lead in the 10th, and then also losing Game 7. He's gone to therapy now, finally, because his wife told him basically, we're going to get a divorce because you've never dealt with this. And he admits he buried it. He wasn't involved in his kid's life, those kinds of things. He buried it. Craig Elo buried it, wound up going to drug rehab later on. Directly, he believes, and the therapist told him, because he did not deal with being on the poster and being in the Gatorade commercial and having everybody talk to him about having Michael Jordan hit the shot over him. And he tells the story the first day he's in drug rehab. The guy goes, hey, aren't you that guy on the Michael Jordan poster? So he's still dealing with it wherever he goes. Those people that buried it have a tough time moving forward. Those that addressed it right away, and I think that's the lesson for all of us. Be honest with yourself, evaluate it,